Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of God's Church. I'm your host, Reverend R.L. Got my trusty guide here. This is the guidebook to finding and to being close to God. Now, this is the first post for 1/1/2014. That's right. Happy New Year, everyone, from the great state of Washington. Now, I want to get down to some brass tacks. Now, a lot of people always ask, and it's online, when's the end of days coming? And the other issue is how come things are happening the way it's happening? Well, simple, really. God gave the power to Satan to try to prove that Satan was wrong when it came to a deal to say that man can rule themselves. Well, since then, God's just waiting for the proper time for them to destroy each other, or etc., until he comes back with the Messiah to fix things. That's right. Now, a lot of you say, oh, well, what's this got to do with? This is the first post for the first year. Before this Bible was created, let's just say there's 1,500 in this one, and 1,508 pages for the New and Old Testament. Now, I don't know about you, but each year or each day could be a story. You can take a day and you can write a story out every day and make a 365-page book. Now, let's just say, for example, you took that 365-page book. Then the next year you did 2 stories on 2 pages. Now you've doubled it. Well, what if you decide to do 3 pages in one day? Eventually, the book would get thicker and thicker with your life's work. And eventually, it could be hundreds of pages like many issues and volumes. Now, the end of days, we're living it right now. I'm not going to go read you scriptures on the same thing I've read in my previous videos. It'll just get boring. I will tell you the end of days is around. And I will say that the reason the end of the day is around, let me answer this, is simple, my fellow video watchers. The end of the day started when Jesus came down, pretty much. He basically foretold it in the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They asked him when the end of days. He says, not before Jerusalem falls to Rome. But the church would never be rebuilt. Well, my assistant, Aaron, thinks, he's a minister by the way, thinks Rome isn't going to be coming back, which is no one has after these centuries. But what I meant to say is the temple won't be coming back anytime soon. Unless they get rid of the Temple of the Rock, which supposedly, he's got a theory that Muslims might be protecting us from the end of days of Revelation. That's why the temple wasn't rebuilt. No one knows. Now, let's get down to the next problem. Now, when Jesus died, other of his disciples and apostles died too. Just, the circle of life. You live, you die. And the wheels on the bus go round and round. But what happens in between? Well, I have a nail problem, by the way. Well, simple, really. You could sit there and read this over and over and over. I only focus on the New Testament because the Old Testament is just, old. The only thing I do read in the Old Testament is Ecclesiastes, sometimes Proverbs, Psalms, and the 10 Commandments, and Exodus, and Leviticus. Now, while we're sitting here gabbing about things that are pretty good, people started losing faith after Jesus didn't return right away. And faith has been slowly being taken away. Satan knew this. Satan knew when the time comes, God would come back, but he wanted to give some time. So, what happened? Well, almost 2,000 years ago, when Jesus roamed the earth, he did his job, and then, look what happened. Things happened, and the world went to pot in a handbasket. 700 AD, the Inquisition, and Muhammad came down, and things happened, and then since then, things have just gone down the toilet. Then when the, royalty came to power and everything else happened, and, the Catholic Church, didn't like something, things would get out of line. Then it got really bad. Around 1500s, things were falling apart around the Catholic Church. Well, the guy named Wycliffe, I believe, was burned as a stake as a heretic when he brought out the first English Bible translated, or the New Testament, I believe. I can't remember what it was, which one it was, but he made the Wycliffe Bible. Wycliffe got barbecued at the stake in the 1400s. Gutenberg brought it out his own, but that's because Gutenberg wanted wanted to do his own thing, Let me look it up for you real quick. So, Gutenberg basically brought his out in the 1400s, and then afterwards, Wycliffe, I believe, wanted to bring his out, and then there was others. There was Wycliffe. There was Wycliffe, Gutenberg, then Wycliffe. Gutenberg was a little harder, but it goes like this, which I might go into details, but anyways, John Wycliffe in 1380. Okay, so Wycliffe started translating it. Wycliffe had died. The Pope basically was so infuriated that he ordered the bones to be dug up, crushed, and scattered in a river because he was that pissed off. What does that mean exactly for the first post for 2014? Well, I'll continue in a minute when I have a hot, fresh cup of coffee and I explain it to you. You see, this is not just about a Bible history. It's going to be also about the end of days. The end of days started when the Pope was losing control of the church and losing control over the Catholics. And the way to do that was he was going to do any way with anyone who was trying to make a reformed Bible, which this is part of the Reformation, not true Reformation because it came from King James, but that's the only thing King James pretty much did. He hired experts, like 57 experts, they say, between 49 and 57, to translate the Old texts and the New texts into Middle English. Middle English is kind of hard to read, but if you take Middle English and make it into modern English, this is what you get. Yeah. So what happened? Why is the things going the way it is, and what's going on with the world? You're asking these questions? I will try to give you an answer of what's going on. So bear with me because it is a long process. So this is 1/1/2014, first video blog for the new year. Wait for part 2 coming up.